Okay. I think this is going to be round two. Let's see if this works better. Um, Hi, mamas. Welcome to Money Monday. Each week I do a new training on a topic that you guys have voted on and requested in the group. And now you are probably with me today because you've been struggling with the cost of food, right, in your spending plan. So this is definitely a problem I'm hearing a lot in the group. I'm hearing in comments. I'm hearing um, in whenever I'm having conversations with you guys, just a lot in general. So I thought this would be a great opportunity and something that we could chat about this week. So all along, you've probably been told that you need to be more disciplined with your money. Eat rice and beans until you've achieved your financial goals. And I don't know about you. I'm sure there are people out there that this works for, but it's just not realistic for my family. And whenever we tried to do that, I found that it was not um, that it was just great. Life just got crazy. It was hectic. And if I tried doing that, it inevitably set us back. So, um, now, ladies, I know that if you've been in the group for a while, you probably know I'm all about spending money in alignment with your goals and your values. And the answer is not to try to be more disciplined. I don't even know necessarily what that would mean with that, because you just need to be able to plan a little bit better. When you plan, then it's not really so much needing to rely on being disciplined. And so, now before we dive too far into this process, before I'm going to go into it, there's so many new faces around here. So for those of you who don't know, my name's Erica Delicata. I am a financial coach and founder of the Intentional Spending Method. I've worked with so many moms to help them create their own unique intentional money system that allows them to spend money on what matters most to them, and so that they can achieve their big financial goals. My system it consists of three phases that work together to create this money system that is organized and allows you to achieve true financial freedom. So today we're going to is story time. Sometimes I have presentations. Today is going to be a story. I'm going to tell you about my client Angela. Her name has been changed, but I do have her permission to kind of discuss this with you guys today. So when she came to me, she literally was overwhelmed with how much um, her family is budgeting for food each month. Um, they were talking about how they spent all this money on food and it ended up in the trash every week. So much produce was in the trash. They'd have their kids would like bananas one week and the next week not. And so they would just sit there. There was so much waste. And then even when they had groceries at home, they felt like they prefer to go out and get dinner at least, a couple times a week, sometimes more. Um, but that made them feel guilty. I don't know about you guys. I've had this feeling too. Feels guilty to eat out, because a lot of times if it's not in the spending plan, you have to move things around or you're using your credit card, or it's chaos, right? So that's what she was at. Her money system was in complete chaos. I want you to comment below chaos if this sounds familiar to you, if you've had a similar issue. Um, it is. Oh, what is going on with my internet? Everything's here. I don't know. It's lagging a little bit, so I'm gonna power through, and then if I have to, we'll re-record at some point. But I want to kind of power through this. So we got to work. We started with my intentional spending method. So I told you guys this is a three phase. I'm going to talk to you just about this one issue, and it's obviously there's a bunch of different things, but we're going to focus on this one issue and how we really got through it. So in phase one, is all about it's your financial foundation. So we've worked on creating a part of that is creating a realistic spending plan. So it can be difficult to face reality of your spending. Sometimes, especially if we know something's not right, right? Like if we know something's not going well, sometimes it's easier to put our head in the sand. So the first thing we did is a spending audit on all the money that was being spent on food. That way we could have the cold hard facts of what was going on, and not just what we think is going on. Often we think we're doing one thing, but We're not. So having those numbers in front of you, I mean, it's undisputable evidence there. And I can't tell you how many of my clients are completely surprised by their spending audit. It's one of the first things that we do, because they think one thing, but the numbers, they're almost always different. You're definitely spending your money differently than you think. Um, so once we knew what was going on, once we did the audit, we were able to adapt their spending habits, as associated with the food, to what they're currently spending. Okay, not what we want them to be. Not that, oh, we don't want to spend money on eating out, or we don't want to spend money on this or that. No, first step is to adapt it to what it actually is. Um, the amount of money in the spending plan did not change. We just adjusted it to, well, it did go up a little bit because they didn't really have a spending plan. But the point is that it did not change as far as we made the adjustments to the spending plan. So that way, they weren't spending a ton of money on groceries when they eat out more often. So the money was allocated to eating out. Um, that way it wouldn't get wasted. They wouldn't have that money wasted, right? So then we moved on to phase two with this. And so in phase two, we focus on aligning your spending with what you want to do. Okay. This is where this involves understanding current habits and adjusting them to what you want your life to look like. So Angela and her husband felt like it was like, they felt it was so important to their relationship. This is something, one of their values, one of the things that were important to them, that they were able to splurge on going out to dinner once, maybe twice a month, for the two of them. In fact, during one of our coaching sessions, they discovered that this was one of the highest priority items and when it came to food for them. Just under survival, of course, but that this was important because it was not just important to, just spend money frivolously. It wasn't that. It gave them an opportunity to connect as a couple. It gave them an opportunity to be better husband and wife, and therefore be better parents. And so there was the root of that. During our session, we really discovered that this was a major thing that they had to have in that it was vital for them to have a happy life. And so they actually talked through that. They realized that sometimes the convenience of fast food is not nearly as important as that having that date night every month. And so whenever they would have soccer, um, you know, during the soccer season, they would have to go out. They feel like they would have to go out because they'd be too tired to cook, or they just have to, they're busy. And so we prioritize when we understand the values. We said, okay, this is what's important to you. Let's focus our spending here and figure out how to stop the other spending that is not so important. So it was also, I'll mention it was also important to decrease food spending by $200, because they wanted to reach some other short-term goals. So they wanted to pay off a credit card by a certain date. And so we determined that it was $200 that they had to cut from that in order to do it. And so we had our first task we were working on, adjust the food spending by 200, but still be able to do the monthly date nights. So a plan to, we created a plan to cut the fast food out, since that was the least important part of their spending. In order to do something like this, you really have to understand what's triggering the spending. Okay. So their biggest trigger was them being outside the house. It was easy to run through, McDonald's and then head out to the game. So we changed it up. So we looked at different things that we could do that would make it, where they didn't have to go through the drive-through. So they made dinner a little earlier, before, early, even at 3 o'clock. I think on some point they had it about 3 o'clock. And then they would bring a big bag of snacks to the soccer game. So if the kids got hungry, they could have snacks, but they had their meal at home. Um, so that's what they started doing. Now, a couple weeks in, we did have our first hiccup, and this will happen because it's a process. It's not an event. So there's always going to be things that happen that according to plan. So the first hiccup happened. Their original plan for dinner one night, it fell through, and they went back to the drive-through. They were like, oh, well, we'll just pick up something. We still have it in the budget. We'll be okay. It's just for one night, right? Um, in our session, they actually stated it was easier than staring at the pantry trying to figure out what to what to make out of pantry food that they had no idea. There was no ideas. Um, and so that's when we implemented what I call my ABC meal plan method. I'm not a method, but it's a tool that I teach my clients when we're trying to deal with food spending. So what you do is each week you create your plan A meals. Okay, so these are the meals that you plan on having every day of the week. These are your main meals, what you would pull out and things and prepare for. I usually, and I do this even for my own food, I usually have about 4 or 5 of these. I don't do a ton of them because I know that I'm going to inevitably do what I'm next is Plan B. Plan B meals. So these are the super convenient ones that can be purchased, on your in every few weeks or so. But I'll say frozen foods work really well here. It's not always the healthiest, I'll admit, but it is way better than fast food. Okay. And then you have your Plan C meals. Now, these are the staples in your house. They are in your house no matter what, always. For example, we always have um, supplies for spaghetti. Always. Or stir fry, both of those. We always have those ingredients at home. So if plan A goes off and or maybe I just don't feel like cooking, or things are still frozen, something happens, then between plan A, plan B, plan C, I have options at home. I'm not gonna go out there. This is gold, guys. Like honestly, when we started doing this too, and I've taught this to my clients, they've decreased their spending drastically on eating out. So um Angela and her husband had actually mentioned that they had felt less pressure, and the trigger to drive through. The trigger to run through the drive-through wasn't there anymore because they had always had options in the house. So once they implemented that, they were able to kind of go through that a lot easier, and navigate that. So after phase two, my clients moved on to phase three, which actually they still currently are. It's growth and accountability. So this is where they continue the skills that we learned so far in the first 2 phases. And we turn those into mastery levels so that you're able to really dive into what it looks like to have some long-term growth on this. So after a month or so or adjustments, they were able to have a new part of their system that allowed them to save $200 on their food spending. Plus, they went out every month on a fancy dinner. Well, they didn't go twice. Now they do, but they didn't then. Um, they went out once. They said that was enough for this point. So it's all about prioritizing. We're not getting rid of it because it was important to them, right? So you can see when you're focusing on just restricting, you focusing on restricting your spending and why just eating rice and beans actually can hinder you from reaching your goal. It's not sustainable. Um, but my intentional spending method, it can help you align your spending to your lifestyle. So you're still reaching long and short-term goals. And when Angela and her husband they went out to dinner, they said it felt amazing that they were able to go out and spend that time together. They had no guilt about spending money on those meals because they truly understood the value of it. They truly understood how it supported everything else that was important to them. And so even though it wasn't a cheap, meal, it still had incredible value, and that's what's important that we're spending that money. And so they were able to, and they even did extra, they had extra meals out when they celebrated paying off credit cards that had been stressing out. They had paid off, I remember they were talking about they paid off this one American Express card that had been stressing them for 2 years. For 2 years, and they paid it off, and then they went out to a really nice dinner to celebrate. And I celebrated with them because that is exactly the way it should go. It is you're looking for a lifestyle change here. This is not going to be a quick fix. There's no magic wand. You need to change things to a different lifestyle, to what you want your life to look like. So I know you're ready to stop feeling like you're wasting your money on food. I invite you all to do a money system assessment call with me. I'll share exactly how especially what I did with Angela, the intentional spending method can help you align your spending with what matters most and what your financial goals are. So on this call, we will review on what your current money system look like, because we all have one, and then how we can inject intentionality into it to help you achieve your goals. I'm going to put the link down below. So if you're interested, click the link, set it up. I can't wait to speak with you. I hope everything is coming through. It's telling me there's a low frame rate, so I'm not sure. I might have to re-record and then just send the link out. But other than that, have a great week, ladies. Next week, join me next week, Monday, 11 a.m. Central. We're going to talk about, is it time for a side hustle? Because I hear that all the time. People want side hustles. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about if it's time for a side hustle or if we have other stuff that we have to do before that. So exciting stuff. Super happy to talk to you then. Bye.